name is obviously Dr. Joshua Fredenberg, and not only am I a national speaker that travels all across the country now virtually, making an impact in the lives of students and professionals all across the country, but I'm also an author of 6 books with a book that's set to be released in the next 2 weeks to 2 months. It's called Red Leadership, Retaining, Engaging, and Developing Culturally Diverse Leaders of the Younger Generation. Got some good news to share with you today. All of you that are locked in are going to get a free download of the first chapter. So our producer is going to put it in the link, but from me to you for your patience, as well as for participating, you're getting a free download of the first chapter one of the chapters today. The link is going to show up in the chat box, and you'll be able to download that immediately today. Last but not least, I'm also the president and the founder of the Circle of Change Leadership Experience. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this, but we are a national leadership organization that is focused on helping culturally diverse and first-generation students not only discover leader from within, but ultimately develop the professional and leadership skills necessary to position themselves for career leadership success after graduation. In addition, we want to give the confidence and inspiration for them to go out and make an impact in their community, their nation, and their world. And so from the Circle of Change Leadership family to you, we want to welcome you to this incredible virtual masterclass today. As many of you know, we just came off of our last virtual experience back in November and December. It was a 6-day virtual leadership experience that was absolutely incredible. And after that conference was concluded, we announced the first generation career conference. If you have not registered, make sure you register today. We're opening up to students and professionals that are first generation. It's going to happen April 9th through the 10th. Got some more news to share. We're actually going to add a 3rd day because we're going to do a session on finances as well. So actually going to be April 9th through the 11th. You're the first to know. We have not said anything about that. But again, you can register. Your students can register today. So make sure you learn more about it. Make sure you visit the website. And if you have some students that you believe would benefit, make sure you register them. And lastly, we're doing an informational in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a Circle of Change informational where we're going to be there to answer questions and give you more in-depth information as well. And there should be a link that should show up in the chat box as well. If you want to register for that first 25, you'll absolutely get a free gift as well for joining us to hear more about the conference. And the first 150 students to register for the career conference in April, their students will either be in a raffle drawing for a $500 scholarship or a brand new Apple iPad. So we're doing some great things and empowering our students for success. And I hope that you all can join us in the future. But we're here for one reason only, and that is to get into this discussion as we begin to talk about first generation students and career success. And I am super excited to introduce our wonderful panelists today. And so we're going to go all the way to Mexico. My good friend Oscar is in Mexico right now. He actually hails in California. Oscar, we want to welcome you to the session. If you can introduce yourself, let us know what you do, and let us know what is one word of wisdom that you would give first generation students today as it relates to career readiness. Oscar, it's on you.
So anyways, what I want to share with you is that oftentimes we hear that we need to find our voice. And I don't believe we need to find our voice. I believe we need to have the courage to use our voice. And oftentimes as first generations, we get stepped on and we don't have the courage. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but thank you, Josh, for the invitation.
So I wanted to thank you for having me here, Joshua. I'm a special projects manager with the Council of Urban Professionals. I'm also an executive director for Living Latina Productions. And I have to say that the one word that I would say has been really an important one to describe what one must try to practice within one's journey, career journey, would be resiliency. And you can always have a starting point where your resiliency, let's say it's at a beginner's level. And in time, you learn to accept that and you learn to build on that, right? Every time you are in any organization, you learn to become more resilient and to be a person that is malleable and willing to learn and being open-minded. And you gain more, you become bigger in your resiliency in time. it takes some time for you to really stretch that muscle out. It's like anytime you start in the gym, right? In the beginning, you ache, but then with time you build more resiliency. And I think during a pandemic, we've had to prove that within any of our organizations. So I would definitely say that has been one of the strengths that I have tried to build on and has really helped me throughout my career.
Yes, so thank you so much for having me. My name is Vanessa Joseph, and I am the entry-level and campus recruitment manager at Fox. So a little bit about what I do on my team is we actually head up recruitment for our internship program as well as entry-level hiring. So I know that I have a couple of my team members on, so shout out to the campus team. One word that I would say speaks to just that college readiness piece. I'm going to take a little bit of Silvana's thunder here, but it's adaptability. So personally, in my career journey, I've always walked by a quote by Jimmy Dean, and it goes, "I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can always adjust my sails to reach my destination." And I think that sums up COVID-19. I think that sums up just being flexible and adaptable at all stages of your career. And having an end goal is great, but just being open to the journey and getting there. And I'm really excited to have this conversation and kind of give you guys some knowledge nuggets with the other panelists as well.
Good. Hello, everyone. Dr. Tierney Bates. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Special Projects and Interim Executive Director for Career Services here at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Go Hills. I want to say, to answer your question, that for first generation students looking and developing around career, find your purpose, marry it with your passion, block out imposter syndrome, and live a life of design with a compass. Notice I said compass, because we always want to put together this roadmap, but with a compass, you can go any direction you want.
Jonathan Stoll, Director of Career Education at the Career Development Center here at Oregon State University. Also the co-host of the Soulforce One's podcast and founder of Soulforce Education. So I'm all about Soulforce. And the one word that I would say is faith. Oftentimes, I think our students, there's this lack of belief in ourselves. Dr. Bates mentioned imposter syndrome. Drake says, "I learned working with the negatives can make for better pictures." My girl Lauryn Hill says, "How you going to win if you ain't right within?" You got to believe in yourself before you're going to ever get someone else to believe in you. So to me, it all starts and ends with faith.
One of the suggestions I would suggest is that those who are working with first-gen students, as far as that's concerned, is that we partner a little bit more with the academic side of the house on how we develop a career exploration, career planning, or what I like to call a life design class. Most of our students will come in and be engaged in saying, hey, you need to go into this major, that major, or have an idea of what major they want to do. But one of the biggest things is there's already data that shows 73% of the people that graduate with a college degree do not go into their intended major. That means majority of you all on this call today, probably by survey, are not actually in the field based upon the major degree you got from your institution. So what does that mean? We need to be teaching our first-gen students about what I talked about, that compass. So that compass is the ability for us to understand that we can make the career decisions and life choices we need to that best fit us around our purpose, our passion, and our vision. And there's certain things we need to have in place. We need to take that career exploration class. We offer those here at UNC as far as that's concerned. We offer a life design course. This is our number one course that literally everyone wants to take. They're knocking down the door. We just don't have enough people to teach it as far as that is concerned. And that it's a class that really strips back about how we get people interested in focused on their happiness and the things that make them happy. And then they marry their passion and their purpose together to go out and do multiple different things. The jobs of the future that we're talking about don't exist. How many of you on this call today thought that there'd be jobs for social media? Well, you didn't know about it 20 years ago, but they exist today. I know we're hiring a social media manager. So it's important for us to understand is what are we teaching our first generation students around adaptability, flexibility, social mobility, around getting experiences that will help them no matter if they decide to go to medical school, go on to get a master's degree, try to go work in corporate America as a whole or nonprofit. What are those true transformational things? We've just started a degree here at UNC Chapel Hill around human and organizational development. It's a bachelor's degree. We need to start focusing more with our first gen students. I know this because I survey our students here and talk to them a lot about what are the things they want to do and what are the things they can have in their skill sets to be marketable. So we need to talk about how do we do more interdisciplinary opportunities for our students around internships and experiential learning to help them out.
Jonathan.
Yeah, you know, one of the things, do you hear an echo? Because I hear it in my headphones, but you can hear me all right? Okay, cool. I think a lot of it comes down to human skills. We often talk about soft skills, communication skills, problem solving. And the reality is that these skills are human skills. It's what differentiates us not only from other human beings, but from artificial intelligence. The ability to interact and engage and connect with others. I think career education has to be integrated within the ethos of a university. So I work at Oregon State University. It's a predominantly white institution, right? And so there has been a tendency of career education centers simply parroting what corporations say they want. And what that is often rooted in is white, heteronormative, patriarchal norms. And we need to value where we've been, our stories as Black and brown people in particular, and empower our students to really value and have faith in their voice, in their story, and be confident and have the faith to be able to essentially, what it is connect the dots. So we had a student who is a public health student who wants to be an advocate for farm workers. And I'm having an interview, a conversation with her, and I ask her where on her resume does she refer to that experience, to which she replies she doesn't, because it's unprofessional, right? It's like, you work in this field, like you've been working in 100-degree weather, working with farm workers. Like that's absolutely relevant to your career path, to your goals, to your dreams and aspirations, right? But there's this voice in our head that doesn't register. And so it's Yoso's cultural wealth. It's the value that we have, our political, social capital. Like networking is a matter of relationships and community building. Resumes, cover letters, it's storytelling, right? So let's talk about these corporatized terms in ways that can relate to our students. And I think the thing that we need to do the most as practitioners in higher education is to listen, right? The questions are more important than the answers. So what questions are we answering our students to guide them, to help them identify that compass, right? Because as Tierney mentioned, like, and as we've experienced through even this webinar, the significance of being and remaining adaptable, because life is going to throw all kinds of things our way, right? And just the same way that we reframe our emotions, which I work with my 5- and 7-year-old daughters on all the time, we have to reframe our experience. So this is about doing math, y'all. Like, I'm not a mathematician, but career education, it boils down to connecting the dots and reducing to the common denominator, taking your experience, right? Because you can't master the interview till you've mastered the interview, till you've realized who you are and your added value, right? So you help students realize that, so that when they go into that interview, they know who they are and they can communicate that value.
I love that concept that you said as it relates to your value and identifying your value. I think that's so important. There's a quote by Carla Harris. She said something really powerful. And she says, and I quote, she said, if you're not succeeding in your area of expertise, then you need to go back and understand how they define success. And then based on how they define success, what you need to do is make sure that the value that you're adding is in alignment with that success. Because a lot of times when we come into companies or we come to organizations, we're not really aware of what success is in that particular company. But when I can align my values to that definition of success, I can become more effective at evolving and moving up throughout the company. So that's really a powerful quote that she said.
Yes. Some of when I was actually in school, I had a phenomenal, really dedicated advisor. And I remember I was actually interning at a law firm. And basically, I was also a soccer player, and I was also student government president, and I was also an international baccalaureate student. And, he said to me, Silvana, I think you're spreading yourself too thin. I remember sitting with him crying and saying, I don't know, I'm not winning at everything. And he said, well, you're not winning at everything because you're spreading yourself too thin and you're doing too much. And I said, well, I thought that this is what I'm supposed to do, this extra overachieving mentality, right? That you sometimes learn from your parents. It's like, be better than everyone, do more than everyone. And so sometimes one of the things that I, he sat down and asked me, I guess, if anything, I'm giving him kudos. But I was asked that question at an early age, is to make sure you focus on things that are really important to you and not try to do everything or too much, and try to do a few of those things well, as opposed to, doing everything and just barely making it, right? And so, one of the things I think that is really important is to actually have a path laid out and a game plan, sort of like what Dr. Bates said earlier, where you kind of are designing what are these three important areas and focusing on them. So maybe now, knowing what I didn't know before, what I ended up doing was I ended up at that moment getting out of the drama club, because even though my professor there was like, you're the best one, I don't want you out of the drama club because every year we have a play and I want you to be in one. I said, well, look, I sat down with my counselor and he said, either do these 5 things and continue to lose your hair, which I was losing my hair, or do these 3 things and actually do those 3 things correctly. So I think trying to really learn and lean in and focus on what are those like 3 core important things that you feel like you really enjoy doing, and try to learn more about that and figure out, what it is that is the best fit for you.
That's great. That's great. What about you, Oscar?
So there are 4 questions that I wish I would have been asked. Number 1 is, Oscar, what first impression do you want to give a prospective employer? And back then, internet, social media wasn't around, but I would include that today. Number 2 is, why do you want to pursue whatever that position is? Number 3, what are your values, and align your values with the values of the organization, or oftentimes we refer to as the company culture. And then the last one, number 4, is, Oscar, what is your vision for the next 6 months, a year? Because beyond that, I don't know what it would be. And the reason why that last one too is important is because when we are in college or a young professional, or we are transitioning careers, we don't have the experience. But what we can do, and something that I've learned from living and also working with startups, is that startups sell the vision. They don't sell an existing product. And so those are the 4 questions that I think I would be really important to this day, and even back then.
That's amazing. That's amazing, Oscar. Thank you so much. Really, really great information. I want to move to you, Vanessa. I know we haven't got to you yet, but I want to move to you. You are literally responsible for internships as well as early career at Fox. And I want to ask you, out the box, so we have professionals from all across the country working with first generation students. What are 4 specific questions that you normally ask when you're interviewing, or you're thinking about hiring someone for an experience with your company?
That's the first time the mute got me this year. So I think I did pretty good up until this point. But the first question I always ask is, why are you interested in this internship? Why are you interested in this company? And really identifying us as, some sort of a milestone in your career, or identifying the why behind why you want this is the first step in really getting me to listen and really buy into why we should have you here. For students who take that step to really do the research and really understand us as a company and see how they fit in, it does come across in the interview. So I think that's the first one. The second one is really understanding their strengths and weaknesses. or growth areas. So really identifying again, specifically how you are, ready to transition into this internship, and what asset you will be, as well as, potentially what you might not yet know. Part of an internship, we're not looking to hire you knowing everything and all the ropes of the business, but we still want you to be kind of that good clay that we can shape and mold, and really invest and pour into. So again, that self-awareness of knowing like I'm here now, but I know I need to get to this place, and I'm in the space of trying to figure out and map out how exactly I get there. And this internship helps me do that, right? The third question is really speaking to who you are as a person and your experiences thus far. It's great if you know the programs, the software systems, the ins and outs of the company, but who exactly are you, right? Really leaning into your personal experiences and getting to know kind of some interesting facts about you on a more personal level. The truth is we spend more time working with, our colleagues and sometimes the family we have back home. So who are we, working with, right? Like, what are some things you like doing maybe outside of work? And really just getting to know who you are as a person is another piece of that. And then this one changes, but specifically with just the news industry being what it is now, it's a never ending cycle of information. So if you do want to pursue this, like how much are you willing to put into it, right? Really understanding, hey, if I want to pursue a career in news, it's a 24/7 news cycle. So are you open to working those longer hours, being flexible to that schedule, and kind of making those sacrifices, right? Like just how bad do you want it? So I would say those are the top four that I have.
Oh, that's great. That's great, Vanessa. Really, really great points. I love how you use Eric Thomas. How bad do you want it? But to sum up this question, I think there's some pretty critical things I want to just practically put out there for you that are watching. I think number one is when you talk to a Vanessa or you talk to other people that you know that are in different areas of expertise, identifying what exactly are they looking for, what is the skill set, what are the characteristics, what type of qualities are looking for, and then as Dr. Bates, as Savannah, as Oscar, and Jonathan said so very well, then begin to put together specific questions that help your students begin to discover who they are. This could be a great first step towards preparing your students for what I like to call career leadership success. And really, if you're doing workshops, if you're doing an institute, this in itself can take over a month. You can do 4 programs right here in order to prepare your students for what I like to say career leadership success. And I think it's so valuable and so important. And it moved me into my next question. I'm gonna target Savannah, then I'm going to move to Vanessa and Oscar on this question. And this is the question I want to ask. Here at the Circle of Change Leadership Conference, we have 7 specific learning outcomes, and it really revolves around career leadership success. And we talk about emotional intelligence. We talk about being an inclusive leader. We talk about interpersonal skills. We talk about professional skills. We talk about leadership skills. We talk about resilience that we have found to be important as it relates to career leadership success. But there was actually an article, and I would encourage all of you to check it out. It's by the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they talk about what skills employers are looking for. And the reason I want to start with Vanessa, I want to start with Savannah, then move to Vanessa, and then go to Oscar, because I know that they work in different areas and different sectors. And I want to ask you, we'll begin with you, Savannah. You do a wonderful organization where you work with emerging leaders in the finance industry, and then we'll move over to Vanessa and then back to Oscar. What specific skills are you seeing now that business leaders, that leaders in entertainment, or just leaders in general or organizations are looking for that students need to be aware of ever since COVID-19? So I'll start with you, Savannah, and let you take it away.
Absolutely. So I think that one of the things is they definitely want people to be very comfortable and friendly with technology. You know, technology is the future. Our tech forum that we just recently had with Bloomberg was phenomenal. And it was all about, technology and how that's something that all companies right now are wanting to make sure that whoever they're hiring is well versed in. And you said emotional intelligence, that's extremely important. People look to see that where people have worked before, they've had a really good rapport, and that they, and that they build good relationships, and that, people have wonderful things to say about them. At the end of the day, you walk around with your reputation, And like, people sometimes they say, well, look, you always have time to start a new reputation somewhere, and you can always start fresh, but it's always good to build good partnerships, always be someone who is pleasant to work with, because referrals, let's be honest, referrals will take you places you've never thought possible. I mean, I remember when I was in the job hunt, even as a freshly graduate, I spoke to someone that like picked up the phone and said, "You were so great. Hold on a second. There's not a position here, but I want to call someone I know, a buddy of mine that might need someone like you." So, my mom always taught me and said to me, just always be your best self everywhere you are. Always be humble. Always be, a person that, is nimble. Sometimes I remember, my first jobs, like I remember, someone saying, "Listen, I need you to grab me a coffee." I knew they were busy. I wasn't going to say, "Well, oh my God, this is not my job." Always be nimble, be open. We're all collaborating together. So definitely people look for people who have had a nice rapport somewhere already. And if you're somewhere like as a student that you're not really liking how it is, just try to stick it through. And another better opportunities and open for you even within that company, who knows? So I think it's about being nimble. It's about being open-minded. It's about being, high emotional IQ has to do with maybe you don't like the person, who's working next to you. And that's part of it. In your home, sometimes there's a sibling that you just don't get along with, but you have to make it work. You have to be a team player. You have to be a leader. And right now, companies love a good success story. Anyone hiring, they want to know, what did you do during COVID that was absolutely amazing? And you should tell that story, So I think during times of challenges like the recent pandemic is a time for you to really show up and show out. And obviously within proper restraints and following protocol and safety, but there's so much that you can do even from home, from your computer. I've talked to students sometimes that they tell me stories like they were just there for like 5 friends that were just feeling really depressed during a moment of COVID. That's a story to tell. How did you help someone start journaling? How did you, help them, through a tough day, a tough time? That's part of your story, because the same way you'll do it for someone else, you'll do it in the workspace. It'll translate differently, but who you are will always translate and be with you everywhere you go.
That's really good. There's so much good stuff. And I keep hearing people getting jobs, never put in a resume. All of a sudden, the opportunity opens up based on your connection, on your network. Vanessa, Oscar, what about you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh, sorry. So just to start off, yeah, I'm absolutely aligned with what Silvana said about technology, especially now. A lot of our workforce, at least at Fox and many other companies, are working remotely. So just having that knowledge of technology and being kind of ahead of the curve before, that that moment hits where you now need to teach yourself is really a good practice to just stay up to date on technology. And then also just taking initiative, right? Like in this now remote state and virtual state, I can't just walk into my boss's office as I usually would have to have a question answered, right? So just figuring it out and using the resources as I work independently is something that I think a lot of managers are now appreciating, because they don't have just that convenience of, turning around, tapping your shoulder, and being in that same space to get things done simultaneously and in that moment. So just kind of being that problem solver and being able to utilize the resources, utilize the colleagues and the individuals that to kind of figure things out, rather than every question is a question that needs to be escalated. I think it's really appreciated now, because a lot of people are again just leaning into this new remote structure where it's not easy, and not being in the same space with someone, but how are you still navigating it and making this a little bit more easier on you and on some of your colleagues as well.
Like, so great, Vanessa. That's so great. One of the things I often tell students as it relates to being a virtual student, some it's very tough. is very challenging, but obviously, as you have said so very wonderfully, it's actually preparing them that once they graduate, they can effectively work remotely, virtually as well. And so I definitely tell students to embrace the moment and take full advantage of it. But Oscar, we're going to you. What do you want to share?
Three things, three skills that I think are really important. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD or, no PhD, okay? Number one is relationship building. Super critical all the time, folks. And especially right now, it's more virtual. Learn how to build relationships online. It blows my mind how I participate in many of Josh's events. There are right now 220 people on this webinar. Because I'm active on LinkedIn, only 3 of you, Tiffany, Ann, and Jan, have sent me an invitation to connect on LinkedIn. That's less than 1%, folks, okay? Skill number 2, storytelling. And so Ivana talked about that. Get super good at knowing how to tell a story. Did you notice how Josh in the very beginning was playing a video? He's telling a story, okay, of his upcoming conferences. And the third skill is how to turn crap into fertilizer, because manure is fertilizer. How do we turn the challenges in our life and reframe it, as Jonathan talked about, into a positive? We've all been through crap this 2020, and some of us as first gen, we're wallowing in crap. In fact, if you don't have any, I'm happy to give you some of it, okay? But the thing is, I don't let the challenges in life hold me back. Instead, I use it as fertilizer to fertilize my dream. Those are the 3 skills.
I love that. I love that, man. So much powerful information. I love the fact, I believe you said, turn your crap into fertilizer, using a bad situation to be a launching pad for success. So much to talk about as it relates to there, but I'm going to go to Jonathan and Dr. Bates. You both are in the space. You both are involved with career employers and all that wonderful stuff. So I want y'all to tell me, what have you saw as the critical skills that you believe students need to begin to develop, like right now?
I was gonna let Jonathan go. You want to jump in, bro? But I think that they've all hit on a lot of it. We're in the digital space. So digital space, skills, technology, data visualization, and data analyzing. The jobs that I'm getting across my desk right now are all around data. That doesn't mean you have to be a genius in data. It means, what are the skill sets that we're teaching our first generation students? For example, are they taking a data visualization or taking something through General Assembly or Coursera or even LinkedIn Learning around how to develop data visualization and analyzing data as a whole? Those are the #1 jobs I am seeing that are coming out overall, i.e. our cell phones, all this great stuff that Oscar was talking about. Our students are on these things, yet we're not using it to their advantage of how they can use it to follow people, like Oscar said, on LinkedIn, be engaged, use it to their advantage, whether on Instagram, Snapchat, all the other great things. Critical thinking is very still important as far as that concerned. Employers are telling us, still being able to work in teams. Just because we're in the remote digital space doesn't mean you still don't know how to work in teams as far as that is concerned overall. Diversity, equity, inclusion is huge right now. So anything around DEI, anything you can speak to, engage with that, is also important. And how we also are teaching our first generation students around their unique value proposition. What is it about them that sets them apart from other candidates in some regards for that internship? Or what are we doing to also get them that experiential learning? Because we focus so much on internships, but in this time frame of COVID, we can also focus on these 2-week, 3-week, 4-week experiential projects and different things they can work on that they can speak to in or outside of the classroom overall, as far as that's concerned. And I think the bottom line at the end of the day is, can they articulate their own vision to the organization as a whole, not only about themselves, as Vanessa was talking about, but also do they see themselves being able to ask the hard questions? I have a list of about 20 questions that I give to students to ask an organization, and not your typical questions, right? So our typical interview questions is, tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. Tell me about a time. No, these are questions that get deep in thought. It will make the employer think about what you're asking them as far as that's concerned, but it also makes you think about, is this the right organization for you? And also, are you asking the right questions?
That's a really good point, Dr. Bates. I know we're going to come to you, Jonathan, but I want to stop right there because he just dropped something I hope you all caught. He said he has a document of 20 questions. If I was you, as Oscar just said, I would connect with Dr. Bates and I would say, Dr. Bates, can you send me those questions? I was going to tell Dr. Bates he should create a Google Drive and he should start giving those questions out because that is so powerful. So I had to stop there because if you're watching right now, I encourage you, connect with Dr. Bates. Jonathan, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I like to think of things in three. And so I told you two of my math related tips in terms of connecting the dots and the common denominator. And Dr. Bates actually referred to the third one, which is differentiation. I actually didn't get into calculus, so I don't know differential equations, but I know that's a math thing, right? This whole process is about differentiating yourself from other people, right? And no one can do you, no one can do we like we, no one can do me like me, right? And so the whole prospect is to, through prayer, introspection, contemplation, meditation, whatever you want to call it, is really delving into who you are and being able to communicate your value, right? And I think of DEI as DEI 2.0 is disruption, equity I'm going to keep, and integration. And how can I integrate myself into an employer? What value do I add there, right? What change can I initiate? Right. And we know, like Michael Jackson said, change starts with looking at the man in the mirror. Gandhi said, be the change you wish to seek. J. Cole said, only real change comes from the inside. And Sam Cooke said, change is going to come. But yet a lot of us are still sitting around waiting for that change. Right. And so it has to be that change is happening on the boardroom and the streets in terms of imposter syndrome, right? Recognizing that code switching is a skill. Like you put a lot of white people in a boardroom, they might succeed. You put them in the barbershop or in different communities, they may be a little uncomfortable, right? How many of us have that skill set because we've been doing this our entire lives of making people comfortable by switching the way we communicate, the words that we use, our ability to relate to other people, right? And so it's empowering our students, again, to recognize the value that they inherently have and to own that and bring that. And so I think that's our work here, is to prepare them and at the same time push back on that system.
I don't know what happened, but
yeah, I don't know what that was. I was like, all right, that was like the record just screeching.
I don't know
like,
what that was about, John. I don't know if you would spin us out. I don't know what was happening.
I don't know if that was on my end.
But it's okay because we're going to get back to this. So real quick, I just want to first of all, thank you all so much for staying with us through all this technology stuff that was going on. One of the things that I've realized as being a virtual speaker, Lynn, I've done hundreds of presentations, is stuff happens and you just got to keep pushing through. As Savannah said, you got to have emotional intelligence. You know, things are going through my mind. I know our video producer has so many things going through his mind, but man, we got to stay calm, cool, collective, push through it, and really begin to take out the important information, which our panel is doing an incredible job at doing. Real quick, we're going to do this thing called rapid fire, because as many of you know, when you registered, I said, do you have a question? Again, there were about 20 to 50 questions. I don't have time to go through all of them, but this is rapid questions. I'm going to ask each panelist one question. They have 60 seconds. So panelists, you have 60 seconds to answer the question. I'm going to start with Jonathan. Here's the question. What are some career trends that you have seen with first generation students? And time starts now.
Career trends. I mean, it's got to be, I'm going back to what I said in terms of knowing yourself and being able to communicate. But, you know, we were talking about how 50% of the jobs that are going to exist 10 years from now don't currently exist. So you got to be adaptable. You got to know your human skills, right? The communication, the ability to take initiative, the ability to work with people, right? And so when you read a position description, print out that position description, highlight those keywords, and your resume is tailored to those keywords, right? There are algorithms that are out there that are, analyzing your resume. It's about storytelling. It's about connecting the dots, right? So this is all about, at the end of the day, the biggest thing we've talked about and I'll harp on is relationships. Like this is about networking and getting your network to work for you. And the only way you need to differentiate yourself by, again, being yourself. Like the recruiters, the other people on the table, they've heard those talking points. They've heard people tell them what they think they want to be told over and over again. You bring you, and that's what's going to make you stand out.
Really good. And I want to clarify something that came up again. He was dealing with data. Dr. Bates dealt with data. He talked about algorithms. Man, so incredibly important. Not only as it relates to your digital brand, but also as far as marketing and engagement. I'm going to move on to this next question. I'm going to go to Oscar. Oscar, your question is this: what podcasts, apps, and social media platforms focused on career development would be great for first generation students? Oscar, you got 60 seconds. Let's go.
So, first of all, Jonathan has a great podcast. He's actually Soulforce Once is a great one. Follow him, his podcast. I also have a podcast called Career Talk with OG. The other thing too, folks, is two of them, LinkedIn and Clubhouse. I know there's Facebook and Instagram, and that's all great. But I'm going to tell you that the thing that's really important, folks, use social media as a business tool. It is okay to have fun. Listen, I'm getting over a hangover from this weekend, okay? Because I had a lot of fun. But I use social media as a business tool. I don't use it to post my six pack, or post those booty shots, okay, or anything. I use it to build relationships with the Dr. Bates, the Joshua's, the Vanessa, Sylvanas, the Jonathans on the world. Use it from that standpoint, those social media apps.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Oscar. And I just want to just clarify something on that. Again, I'm all about giving you practical stuff that you can apply immediately with your students. I think a whole month can be spent on your digital brand. How do you create a digital brand from start to finish as it relates to career? And I think we hear a lot about branding, but here's the second one that I think is so important. How do you maintain that brand and improve that brand? Because if you went to my IG right now and you went all the way back, man, I wish I could just get rid of it. But it's definitely getting better. And I have a good friend by the name of Barry. She does coaching, and she literally rebranded her whole IG, and it's absolutely amazing. And literally 1 month of teaching your students that can be so incredibly important. So really good question. I'm going to move now on to Savannah. Savannah, this is your question. How do we? Okay, we're going to go to number three. We'll go to three. Okay. What are some ways that campuses can get career readiness programs integrated into first year experiences? So, first year experience, about it, just to help you out, it deals with those that are beginning colleges. This is dealing with orientation. What are some strategies that you think that people can do to prepare incoming students for career readiness? It's on you, Savannah. 30 seconds. Let's go.
Awesome. So I would say, I think meet and greets are so important. I would think a really cool concept, I think, would be if when you're dating someone, when you go on a dating app, if anyone's ever done that, you have a couple of seconds with each person. So you kind of do the same thing with professionals of all walks. You have it with these students, and they can actually sit with someone of a different, professional trajectory and kind of have a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes to feel it out, have their own little chart, and start to collect data on what they liked, how it felt, how it was talking to the surgeon at Mount Sinai versus the producer who works medical daytime TV versus so they have like a quick I say 5 to 15 minutes. Look at me, I'm creating it for you. But anyway, I think just like the same way you would do, the same situation where you're having informational meets, just with quick turnarounds, and that way students can get a taste of people from all different walks and backgrounds. So basically, I think it'll be a cool little concept for students to have.
Man, great idea, man. Wouldn't that be a great activity right now? Career speed dating 101 during the love season. I'm telling you, not only will you get your career, you may just meet your future relationship partner. You just never know what can happen. I mean, man, what a brilliant idea, man. What a brilliant idea. I want to move on to this next question. I'm going to go to you, Vanessa. Here's the question. How do we encourage our first generation students to get more involved, not only with the campus community, but I'm going to add a twist to it, the professional community?
Yeah, I think it starts with a little bit of what Sylvana said with that speed networking session mixed in with actually connecting with individuals, right? And I think LinkedIn does a really great job at creating a community of professionals that you can easily access through just sending them an email, right? So as you think about your career just think about people who are mimicking or in these places that you potentially see yourself being in, and start sending those requests. And don't just send a request, but add a personalized note, right? And I think, again, to that storytelling point, people like to connect with individuals who they can relate to. So find some gateway in. If it's the same college, the same sorority, the same fraternity, the same local community organization that they're volunteering at, find something about that person that gives you that personal touch when you are reaching out to engage with them and potentially have these conversations to strengthen your network.
I love it. Time is up. Awesome. Give it up for Vanessa. Dr. Bates, here's the question. How do we get more first generation students to attend online events? I'm going to say it again. How do we get more students, Dr. Bates, to attend more online events? It's on you, 60 seconds.
To me, it's simple. We have to meet them where they are. So you talk about social media with Oscar. You talked about the dating game of career development with Savannah. We have to meet them where they are in their journey around education. So we have to play on words. So I tell my team a lot of times, let's play on words, and we use our student staff to help us with that, right? So we'll tell them what would be a good idea that would get more of us to come into the online space. And we'll play off those words. Now we have to realize the online space, it is what it is. Students are tired. They're a little fatigued over it. We are fatigued ourselves as far as that is concerned. We want to get back to some normalcy. But you got to play on words, and you have to use social media. For example, we did a process with our business class here. They told me, Dr. Bates, you need to be on social media, posting everything around career development, and we'll follow you, and we'll come to programs if you're going to be there because you're engaging. We like what you have to say, all the other great stuff. So find out within your organization what you can do. And then on the flip side, look at your campus. Look at your campus. Where can we start hiring students on campus that are first generation to get them true workforce experience as far as that is nature? A lot of our campuses have temp roles, have work study roles that go unfilled. We need to get those students into those roles.
Awesome. Congratulations. Give it up for Dr. Bates. Rapid fire, y'all. We're getting ready to move into our next set of questions. We got about 30 minutes left, but before we do that, we're getting ready to implement the Wheel of Fortune wheel. So my video producer is going to bring it up. So y'all didn't even know this, but we're giving out prizes today. So I believe the Wheel of Fortune wheel is going to come up real quick. I hope Mike is getting that together. But we've gathered together a group of people as you came in, and we're going to get ready to spin the wheel. And whoever's name that it lands on, they're going to get a free $10 cash app courtesy of Circle of Change. So we're getting ready to spin the wheel. Michael, spin the wheel. And the winner is Kelsey Hart. Kelsey Hart, if you are out there in virtual land, you have just won a $10 cash app courtesy of the Circle of Change Leadership Conference. If you could put that information, let us know that you have won. Make sure you make yourself known loud and let us know. Kelsey, and I see it. How exciting. Yes, Kelsey, make sure you send us your cash app immediately after this. I just feel inspired, Kelsey. I'm going to give you $20 today. So if you send us your cash app, we're going to give you a $20 gift courtesy of the Circle of Change Leadership Conference, the Wheel of Fortune, and we just want to make that that amazing moment for you today. But we're moving on, y'all, and I can't wait to go to this next question. And I just want to open it up for the panel. Whoever wants to address this question, this is the question. As many of you know, we've heard over and over, and I learned this when I deal with first generation students. I talk a lot about resiliency. And one of the things I always hear come up is this concept of imposter syndrome. And what I want to know is this: what are some specific things that we can do to ensure that our students are able to overcome the imposter syndrome and the other challenges that they're going to face as first generation students when they make the transition from college into their career? Dr. Bates, we're going to start with you and we'll move through everyone else. What are some words of wisdom that we can share with our students to help them?
So I'll tell them, first and foremost, God didn't make no junk. Second of all, you have a purpose and a meaning. And on the flip side of that, Josh, I would say the companies and organizations we have to work with, where they can create true intergenerational, true inclusive environments, versus these homogenous environments, why we are able to show up and be our authentic selves. I give you a prime example. I just cut my hair, but I've been wearing a big Frederick Douglass afro for the longest. And we have to understand that my afro doesn't impact how I work for you. And so for people of color, a lot of times, how we show up from an imposter syndrome sometimes sets us back in these spaces. So again, we need to make sure that we talk on the other side, that we can create atmospheres that are not homogenous, but also cultural adds and inclusive.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Any other panelists want to chime in on this question?
I'm gonna hit you with some of my spoken word. So KRS asks one question. Why is that? You don't teach white kids to be black. Why is that? It's whiteness and patriarchy. There's nothing to deny. Covert and explicitly, it's in the water and in boardrooms. Fitting in always meant whiteness implied. Just like land, professionalism's got to be decolonized. So I say, give me dashiki stoves, frozen cornrows. Workplace culture that perpetuated dominant social norms has got to go. So really what it comes down to is, you know, we have to change the system, as Dr. Bates alluded to, right? We got to push back on that and then simultaneously empower our students to own their identity. And there was a gentleman, he was a white guy, and he said something actually that was interesting. And I was sitting with it in terms of imposter syndrome, because we all have imposter syndrome to a certain degree, right? White men, white females have imposter syndrome. We all do. We all have that self-doubt that comes into our head. And that he suggested is healthy. And I would agree, right? Because we're all trying to do new things. So if I were ever to get into a building and I'm sitting down with Oprah being interviewed, I might have some doubt, like, wow, like, do I really deserve to be here in this seat next to Oprah, right? But I'm putting myself in a challenging situation. The difference, though, is that Black and brown people have that imposter syndrome because of the systems, right? What Dr. Bates said in terms of hair, like these things, these lies that are embedded within our cultures and systems, and that needs to be broken down. So there's a distinction, I think, between what this gentleman I was listening to said and the experience of Black and brown people.
Vanessa, Savannah, Oscar.
Yeah, what I want to add to and as well is, and it's true what Jonathan said. I think we all experience imposter syndrome at some point in our life, and it doesn't matter the color of your skin. Yes, the experiences are different. I mean, when I went to UC Berkeley my freshman year, I experienced that. Today, as almost a 52-year-old, where I do some executive career coaching, I see white 40 and 50-year-old professionals experiencing imposter syndrome. And the irony is that back in college, I felt inferior to some of the white people. And today, as an almost 52-year-old, guess who's coaching those white people on how to believe in themselves so that they can go on and get another job? The OG right here, this minority kid. And so embrace that imposter syndrome, folks, but learn how to embrace it from the position of strength, esteem, all the kids, including yourself. What you is you teach us how to, it's almost teaching us how to be a firefighter. Normally, if the house is burning, we are taught to exit danger, but firefighters walk into the fire because they've been taught on how to deal with that challenging situation.
Awesome, awesome. We heard it. We heard you. Awesome. Vanessa, great point.
Yeah, I think mine is, it's all about shifting your perspective, right? Like really stepping into who you are and your experiences and finding the empowerment to live in that truth. I mean, as a first generation student, like my parents were immigrants to this country, and just seeing how hard they worked and their dedication to just build a better life for their children, that is something that to this day I have instilled in my own work ethic, right? So I could have easily just said, you know, my parents worked long hours. I had to teach myself how to do my multiplication tables, and really like just pull myself up and really, you know, stand in my own to get to where I need to go, right? And it got to a point where I was, again, first generation. My parents did not go to college, but it's now that I'm embarking on this new journey and I'm figuring it out, right? And really just stepping into that and finding the power in just being the first, right? I know a lot of people say like, well, why do I have to do it? Because if you don't, who will, right? So I think the moment that you step into your own truth and you feel confident about the stories and the background that you bring, the culture that you represent, I think that is your superpower. That is your light that these organizations right now are looking for, right? As the world puts such a microscope on diversity and inclusion and equity, like we are looking for you, right? So just really speaking to your power, speaking to your experiences in a way that again highlight like the goals of this company is something that it should be celebrated. It will be celebrated, and as more people step into that light, it won't be something that seems so abnormal or out of the ordinary, right? We'll start seeing black and brown folks and people of color in spaces, and it'll seem like it's, you know, the regular. So I think again, um, leaning into your experience with confidence is the first step, and shifting that perspective um, is the second.
That's great. I can empathize with you on that, Vanessa. Mhm.
Savannah, it's on you. Savannah, you came on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I was listening to her, and like, look, for me personally, one of my first jobs was to be a casting director with MTV, and I grew up in a bicultural home. My stepdad is Black, my mom is Latin, and I was tasked to do a wedding show of bicultural couples getting married and share with the masses this very unique journey. And what I learned in the transcourse of doing the show is that, you know, we obviously do it, we get a lot of data is people love being around and seeing things that are different in cultures that are not necessarily close to theirs. And what I learned filming with people throughout my work trajectory is the episodes that did better, and the people who seem to be the most fulfilled in general are people who are their authentic self. And you can try to be someone else, but the real you will come out at the end of the day, right? So if you grew up in an area and you know, a phrase that you grew up is there you go, say there you go, be your authentic self, and the rest will follow. If an organization doesn't want you, you know, the way that you are, they're not going to hire you. That's bottom line. If they're looking to fit, you know, as a casting director, I had to sit with executives and say, I know you want the blonde that weighs 120 pounds, but let me do this one, you know, after these 2 years, have a little faith in me. I want to film this because there's something good here. And then it turns out being the highest rated episode. And they said, wait a minute, the girl who doesn't look a certain way, you know, that doesn't have certain hair actually did the highest rated this season. And then they'll listen to you. It takes time, right, for people to gain your trust. But, you know, you don't want to be anywhere where someone doesn't want you. So be yourself, you know, be professional, be the best you can be, and the right opportunity and the right door is going to open at the right time. And like Jonathan said, you know, faith will take you places that you never thought, you know, would happen. You know, I remember I walked into MTV when I was 18 and I said, I want to work here one day. I didn't know less than 10 years later they were going to offer me a casting director role. Life took me there, but I did manifest. I did pray for the right door to open, and faith will take you places you never thought would be possible. So that's also part of the journey.
And if I could just add one more thing, I think we need to start training students and individuals to sit in an interview and interview their like their potential employer or the opportunity. Like I think we prepare them for interviews as like, make sure you're saying this, make sure you're highlighting that, make sure you're speaking to this. But then when it comes to the reverse, it's like, but is this the right fit for you? Like if you have to put on a mask in this interview and step out of your own comfort zone and act as if you're something you are not, like, is this really an employer that you want to represent and be a part of? Will they support you the way that, you know, you see many companies doing now, in COVID is a great example, right? Like, how are these companies really adjusting to working from remote and setting you up for success in this job too? I think yes, an interview you definitely need to prepare for, come in with your strengths, your weaknesses, what you bring to the table. But just as importantly, you should be asking that of this potential opportunity as well. Like why should I come here? Right. And really just add that other side of the interview. It works both ways. It has to be a mutual agreement that this is right for the both of us. So let's make this a conversation and not me just selling myself.
Josh, if I can chime in, Vanessa is
Oh.
hitting it on the head. That's why I give my students these questions, because a lot of times students will go put on the great face, interview, go to that organization and realize the organization lied to them. And I say that in multiple different ways, because when it comes to recruiting, specifically our students we're talking right now, first gen students, everybody wants first gen BIPOC, people of color right now. Everybody wants that. But are they truly set up for what that will embrace when they come to your organization, as far as that's concerned? And it goes deeper. So our students have to ask these questions to make sure they're making an informed decision. Because what we don't want is we send all our students into this organization and they have to deal with more trauma and they have to deal with more things. And then what happens is we have a revolving door where students leave and the organization never realizes it's not the students, it's your organization and the culture.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. What you said, Dr. Bates, as well as Jonathan's been saying as well, and Vanessa and everybody. I love your concept of the culture of the organization. One thing I talk about is diversity, and I have a friend that talk about DI as well. And one thing that she talked about was reversing. A lot of times you hear diversity inclusion, she says say inclusion diversity, because the reality is if your culture is not conducive for diverse groups of people, it does not really matter. And so I love how Dr. Bates said that. And I want to piggyback on something else that I want to say, and Vanessa kind of stirred this up in me as well. And really it goes back to the notion of going back to knowing who you are. And I like to use the words. One of the things I talk about when I deal with resiliency is remembering who you were. Like so many times we forget who we are. Like we have these victories, we have these accomplishments. I mean, just to think about some of the challenges that our students are going through just to get into school and just to graduate, that in itself is what is resiliency, is perseverance, and is amazing in itself. And I really think it's always important not just to know who you are, but also what I like to say is identify your assets. Like when I go to the company, I don't need the company needs me. I'm bringing value, I'm bringing solutions, and there's something I'm bringing to the company. And that's not to be arrogant, that's a matter of just knowing your value. And I think one of the things we can definitely do with first generation students is number one, begin to go back to your story. What did you do to be resilient? What did you do to be resourceful? How did you navigate through COVID-19? Another one is your cultural asset. I tell people all the time, your culture is an asset. If you're the only green in the all red environment, guess what? There's something you know about green people that nobody in the room is going to understand. And so again, that's an asset, and that's thing that you bring to the table, and that's value that you bring. And I found that a lot of times people have imposter syndrome, or people get to a place of low self-esteem or low confidence or not believing in themselves because they are not remembering who they are. They're not going back to the things that they've done. They're not encouraging themselves enough. They may be listening to the wrong things. Like you're listening to everyone else besides who you know you are. And these are some things that we can do. But the other thing I want to add that I think is critically important as it relates to first generation students and career success is this concept of social awareness. I think social awareness is so important. It's an aspect of emotional intelligence. And I like to break it into three folds. Number one, it's an ability to be empathetic, so an ability to understand people. But number two, it's also an ability to be able to read the emotions of others, as well as read the temperature or the emotions of the organization, and to be able to respond the right way. I think that's so incredibly important. And the other one that I don't think we teach enough, I know we always talk about, changing the system, but before you change the system, we got to get a seat at the table or create our own seat. And at some point, someone's going to have to navigate it. Like I know we want to change the system, but in order to change the system, there has to be more people at the table that can make a decision. And in order to get to the table, you got to be able to navigate. And I don't think we talk enough about that. But I want to ask the panel, how do you navigate? Like, how do you navigate? How do you deal with all the challenges that you're going to face? I mean, Dr. Bates, we can talk about higher education. That could be a question in itself, How do you navigate? Because the truth be told, change will not happen until we get more people at the table. I know we can create our own table, but at some point, there's going to have to be some persuasion, some buy-in. And just one chief diversity officer is not enough. I'm just saying that. But how do we teach people to navigate that process? What, Dr. Bates, I'm gonna come back to you and let people talk. How do we navigate?
So a couple different things. We have to internally within our organizations look at what we need to do around language, inclusivity, the whole ideation from that. I'm actually in the process of writing a chapter on that for a book that'll be published out later on this year, of how do we develop within our organizations to create these spaces that people feel like they belong. Specifically when it comes to career development for first generation students, and how organizations themselves need to change what that looks like moving forward. I think it's very important for us to understand that a lot of times that when people show up, we're not making sure that we're showing up as our true selves in a lot of different ways. So when I show up to interview, when I show up to engage, you have to understand what I'm bringing to the table, not only because of my skill set, what I know, my ability to do the job, but the other cultural add pieces that I could bring to your organization as a whole. I'll let other people talk about it as far as that's concerned, but it's important for us to realize as we move forward this working with our first generation students, we're going to have to peel back some onions, as I like to say, and get deep and dive into it with our students, with our staff. I think I saw somebody in the chat mention they wish more of their staff was on this call, and it's been amazing. That is true. This is an opportunity for all of us to go on a lifelong journey of learning. That's why I say it's a compass. It's not necessarily a map. Like, you got to have this final destination. You have to have this direction you want to go with a compass that can get you to where you eventually want to go. But you got to know that there's going to be some mountains, some valleys, some peaks, some rivers that you have to cross and all that different stuff. But are you willing to go there is the key.
Yeah, Josh, what you were talking about earlier, just to take it back for a second, in terms of getting beyond just the diversity. And I think when we talk about imposter syndrome, it's recognizing the adversity that we've overcome. And then we've emphasized is the added value. So the adversity and the added value. And I think what Dr. Bates was getting at is I do DEI training and leadership development with organizations. And oftentimes there's this interest right now, since George Floyd was murdered, of talking about DEI. And oftentimes beneath all of that is a lack of organizational trust, right? The ability for people to come as their authentic selves and say things and say it how it is, right? And so you can't want to talk about DEI, but then not have a culture in which you are cultivating trust, organizational trust. And so for me coming in, like, my brand is to be disruptive, right? To be diplomatic about it. That's not mean I'm going to come in and be disrespectful, but I'm going to ask hard questions, right? And we're going to have some hard conversations. And that's how we progress. That's how we get through this. We have to get through this.
You know,
we got literally about, Oscar, I'll let you go first before I.
Yeah. One thing that we haven't talked about that I think is really important too in all this is that we get into a personal growth and development program. If there's one thing that I could change, it was to believe in myself a lot sooner, a lot younger in my life, because if we don't believe in ourselves, and then all the other things, that come into play, imposter syndrome and networking, and how do you do this? How do you do that? I mean, it's really, really challenging. And again, we rarely ever talk about personal growth and development. There's a book that I recommend all of you read. I read this book a long time ago. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big.
I love that book. That's an amazing. I've read that, Oscar. That's an amazing. Steve Harvey actually talked about that back when I was like several years ago, and that's how I heard about it. Amazing. We're getting ready to close, y'all. We literally have about 6 minutes left. Again, I could talk all day because I feel like we have a flow going on right now. And so many things are going through my mind. But number one, I know that Dr. Bates said someone said they wish their staff was there. Well, the good news is we're doing the Circle of Change First Generation Career Conference. And a lot of what we talked about here today, we're going to be talking about at the conference. And so I highly encourage you, if you could have your students or if you want to register, again, that program is going to be April 9th through the 10th. The first 150 people that register will literally be entered into a raffle drawing. Again, many of you said you were interested, so you'll probably get an email and a phone call from our team as well. But again, want to just encourage you. You can check that out today. Our goal is to do an informational in the next couple of weeks. And I'm just sitting here like, man, we should do this panel again. I don't know how everyone feels on a panel, but I'm like, for y'all to say y'all want more, I want more too, because I love this and I love learning. And we only got through 3 questions. So if y'all down to do it again in the box, and y'all give me a thumbs up. If y'all down to do it again, let me know. because we'll come back in maybe about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, but we'll be back again. They got all thumbs up, so we're going to figure out how to make that work. So we're going to continue in this discussion again as we move forward. So definitely want to encourage you to make sure you share that with your staff members as we'll continue in more conversation as well. But we're getting ready to close. And as we get ready to close, I always like to close with a final question. And so I see Savannah come up first. So we'll start with you, Savannah. In 20 seconds, if you could go back to your college experience and dealing with what you're dealing with right now, what is one word of wisdom that you would give to yourself? And we'll go through Savannah.
Looking back, one word of wisdom would be that's a tough one. Let's see. Looking back to this situation now with a pandemic, right? I think I would say onward and upward. I would just say, just continue the good march, continue always knowing that things will always turn out for the positive and that there is a lesson in every situation. So onward and upward we go.
Love it. I love it. Dr. Bates.
I would say stay flexible and mobile. And the reason I say flexible and mobile is because as our nation changes around careers, around development, how much of the skill sets that I have gained in my career are still applicable, no matter if I'm in higher education, nonprofit, corporate America as a whole. So stay mobile, stay flexible as far as that's concerned, and be willing to take chances.
Vanessa.
So mine is going to have to be piggybacking off of Carla Harris. You don't ask, you don't get. Closed mouths don't get fed. And that's because thinking back to who I was in undergrad, I was very much so an introvert. I did not network as much as I probably should have, given that I went to Syracuse University. It was just an amazing opportunity to really get to know the people on that campus who can later on connect me to other individuals to really start my career off a little bit quicker. So again, I think it's just so important to just go out, put yourself out of your comfort zone, and just connect with people. And again, just treating everyone with that same level of respect, regardless of the title.
I love it. Oscar.
So what I would say is be more of a giver than a taker. When we are going through difficult times, we're in survival mode, and it's normal that we focus inward. I've done that. I've been guilty of being selfish. But if we can continue to give, even in these challenging times, it is something good. And let me tell you two things. Number one, if you are a student, you're probably wondering, well, what can I give to professionals? Give a compliment. Number two, when Dr. Bates offered his 20 questions, I saw many of you started asking for those questions, and that's fine. But if you go onto his LinkedIn profile, you're gonna see that Dr. Bates does a lot of public speaking keynotes. And you know what I would do? I would give him some referrals. I would give him some introductions. And then I would ask for those 20 questions. Why? Because that approach, the second, is what I'm talking about, being a giver versus a taker.
Yeah, and Oscar
awesome.
just modeled it right there, right? He just hooked up tyranny, like promoting each other, right? And that's what Josh is doing and bringing us together. I'm going to hit you with two. One is Dr. King said we must meet physical force with soul force. People get activism and this idea of civil nonviolence all mixed up. Like it actually takes inner strength, right? And so the inner strength to deal with the pandemic, the resolve, the suffering, right? So that's both on a professional and personal level. My one word would be belief, like belief in yourself. Believe you can fly. I think I just quoted R. Kelly. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's okay. It's okay. They get the point, John. They get the point. Real quick, I saw some people in the chat. But well, first of all, can we give a big virtual round of applause to all our panelists? Can we give a big round of applause again? Make sure you connect with them on LinkedIn. Make sure you connect with them on LinkedIn. They're all on LinkedIn. Number two, the second thing I want to say, I saw some people asking, will there be a recording? Yes, there will be a recording. We record everything. So we'll have the recording available very soon. In addition to that, if you go on Facebook, to our leadership and diversity group, student affairs, leadership and diversity group. It's actually going live there right now. So you can actually go see it right now, but we will have a recording that we're sending out. Also said some people that asked about red leadership. I believe Michael put a new link in there. I believe it's working. If it is not, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure to send you a link. And otherwise, I'll make sure I include it in the emails that I send out. So make sure you check your inbox. Make sure y'all find my emails, because I definitely have more information to send to you all as well. In addition to that, again, we'll be doing an informational next couple of weeks. So for those of you that are interested in Circle of Change, I actually had someone reach out to me on Facebook Messenger. And so I'm definitely going to reach back to them. But again, definitely want to get your students involved. Listen, I'm really serious about empowering first generation and culturally diverse students and preparing them for career leadership success. It's definitely a daunting task to do these conferences with all the other things that I got going on. But again, I'm committed to the mission. I love meeting amazing people like this, and I love inspiring students and professionals. So if you can do me a favor, if you're interested, let me know. But either way, spread the word, tell someone about it, let them know about the value. Again, as Oscar said, it's all about generosity. And so I think one of the forms of generosity is giving back to others as well. So I want to just thank you all so much again. Thank you for enduring the technical difficulties in the beginning, and we navigated, we persevered, but boy, we came to the right place. And that's what I want to close it on. I want to close it on, don't flatten the curve, be ahead of the curve. What does that mean? That means I'm going to navigate through the challenges, but by the end of the day, I'm going to be in a much better place than I was when I began. And I think that's what happened today. We started with challenges. We started over here, sounded over here. But ladies and with everyone, we're in the right place right now. We have unified. We have become connected. We have become community. It's just been incredible. I'm feeling inspired. That's why I'm talking so much. But again, I want to thank y'all so much for being a part of this wonderful program. We will see you in about 3 to 4 weeks with our next virtual masterclass. But again, there will be the informational. And then in about 2 months, we're coming back with these same panelists, because we're going to continue in the discussion, because there is so much to talk about. Thanks again to all the panelists. Make sure you connect. Thank you all for connecting. Thank Michael, our video producer. Man, Michael, that's another story to tell. Thank you so much as well. Y'all have a wonderful time. Make sure you connect with us. We want to connect with you. We want to connect with like-minded people. Be connected as well. And have a fabulous rest of the weekend. And make sure if you got a boo thing, do not forget that Valentine's is on Sunday. All right, peace.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.